Baroness of Buckley.
My Lords, I beg to ask the question standing in my name.
My Lords, all employers, including the NHS, are required to comply with existing law on single-sex facilities. In these cases, a common sense and empathetic approach is needed. It is important that service providers have clear guidance about the Equality Act. We will consider if further guidance is needed, including on how to lawfully apply its single-sex exemptions.
I thank the noble lady for that reply. I do know that the government values frontline health workers, and I'm sure that you are concerned to hear that NHS trusts are allowing ideology to deny nurses safety, privacy and respect at work. I'm disappointed, however, that action isn't more immediate, because the Secretary of State, Wes Streeting, did say that he was horrified by the case of the Darlington nurses being forced to share their changing facilities with a male colleague who identifies as female. And does the Minister agree that trusts need urgent guidance on this issue? I know the Darlington nurses have submitted draft guidance to the Department. And the question is... Okay. And the question is, if that guidance could be brought forward because nurses are being bullied and harassed at work around this issue.
Here. I'm not sure I can agree with the noble lady about trusts being driven by NHS ideology, but what I would say is all staff should be treated and must be treated with dignity, their safety and their privacy respected. Much of this is about practicalities and working with staff in the same way that other policies are worked with, and I would expect common sense and, as I say, sensitive approach to prevail. The Secretary of State, as the noble lady said, did indeed meet with the 5 nurses from Darlington about their concerns about single-sex spaces, and we have indeed received a draft version of the guidance that they themselves have produced. We've received it and we will reply to them at the earliest opportunity, but the guidance that I would focus on is from the government. We are looking at how we can assist all employers at complying with legislative requirements.
My Lord, the NHS England wrote to me on the...
My Lord, would the Minister agree?
I think we'll hear from Baroness first one.
My Lords, would the Minister agree that once again we must reinforce the need to treat everyone with compassion, dignity and respect, especially in media reports which discuss protected characteristics and cases of alleged discrimination?
Here. Absolutely.
I would indeed agree with the comments of my noble friend.
My Lords, this direction. Hello. My Lord, is the Minister considering any possible unintended consequences of this guidance? As a lesbian who's frequently told she's in the wrong toilets and is my lorded and sirred frequently around this place, which is always cute, does the Minister think there might be some unintended consequences for those who are not trans but perhaps don't fit the immediate, on first glance, version of what a woman might look like? And perhaps we should let women determine their own sense of identity in these situations.
I am sorry to hear of the experience of the noble lady, as I've heard her speak of this before. But what it points to me is that need to treat people, as I said earlier, with respect and with dignity and without making assumption. And I can't emphasise enough, as I said, the need for sensitivity and respect, which applies to everybody. While we're talking about changing facilities, if we think about the huge difference in shops over the years, which used to be communal changing rooms, I think you'd be hard-pushed to find that now, that people have private spaces for changing. And that, again, applies to everybody. I recognise the challenge of the estate of the NHS, of course, but I am talking about creative solutions and working with staff in order to get where we need to get.
Oh, my lords, the noble lady is absolutely right to talk about the issue that we've got to deal with this in a very sensitive way, respect people's dignity, but also act with compassion. But given that some NHS staff and patients, indeed noble Baroness Fox referred to it, they have asked for single-sex provisions to protect their privacy and dignity. So if the government is planning further guidance, how does it intend to achieve that difficult trade-off and that balance, the potential conflicts between single-sex provisions for NHS staff and patients, but also the rights of individuals under the Equality Act 2010, and also respecting their dignity and acting with compassion?
Well, the noble lord raises an interesting point, and in all cases with guidance, that is always the balance that we have to seek to reach. But I was also interested in the history of this, and the noble lord himself, I'm sure, will remember that the 2019 guidance on trans patients in single-sex spaces, if I might put it this way, proved to be somewhat controversial. There was, under the last government, meant to be updated guidance. This didn't happen. It was delayed, I'm advised, by dispute between the previous government and NHS England, and that also delayed proposed updates to the NHS Constitution, which again were consulted on, which is a good thing, under the last government, but nothing actually happens. So all these things now come to us as a new government and will get full consideration to get into the right place.
In the last few weeks alone, we've heard about the range of colleagues, challenges facing our NHS. Physically collapsing hospitals, extensive waiting lists and a social care review, to name but a few. More guidance in areas of uncertainty is to be encouraged. However, given that only 0.55 of the English population is trans, where does the Minister think that this should come in the order of priorities?
Ooh.
Well, it is the responsibility, and I know everybody in your Lordship's House will take this view, that the NHS is there both as an employer, as all employers are, by the way. It isn't just something specific to the NHS, and also in its service to patients. It is there to treat all with the right dignity and with the right respect. And I have to say, we've got a legislative framework which reference can always be made to. We will see what further guidance is needed, and that may be to all employers, by the way, not just to the NHS. But again, I really can't emphasise enough the need for careful consideration, for involvement of all staff, and to find what has to be on a trust-wide basis, because everybody is different in terms of their estate and what the challenge may be. I don't think it's something as simple as numbers. I actually think it's about fairness and dignity for all.
Thank you. The NHS England wrote to me to confirm that any patient can choose the sex of a chaperone. Will the new guidance define what is meant by sex in that case?
Well, there is already definition, of course, in legislation about what that means. But I can't. I know my noble friend will understand this. I can't predict what guidance will be, but I certainly will pick up the point that she has made.
I remind your Lordships that I sit as a non-affiliated member of this House. I encourage the Minister and the Department to proceed with the utmost caution. Trans women and trans men pose a threat to no one. In relation to single-sex space, this House has debated the issue frequently. Therefore, does the Minister agree that the Equality Act works, with any measures for exclusion being on a case-by-case basis, proportionate and evidence-based? And will the Minister give the House the assurance that it will continue that sensible and humane approach?
Hear, hear. I can agree with the Noble Lord that the legislation actually provides a clear framework to all employers, but I also accept the fact that some employers may wish to have further guidance on the existing legislation to enable them to make the right local decisions as employers, and it is that we will consider.